Hello guys, you are welcome to another HTML and CSS tutorial with Flourishfield Academy. And today we'll be creating our very first HTML file in Visual Studio Code. Now from our last lessons, we learned how to download and install Visual Studio Code, and today we'll continue by learning how to create our first HTML file and, of course, the first set of codes we need to put on that file. Now, back on our Visual Studio Code, where we already have our folder Flourish opened, as you can see, the folder is open because the arrow is pointing down and there's nothing at all inside the folder. So right here, where there's nothing in the empty space, I'm going to right click and select an option that says New File. Remember, we're trying to create a file. So I'm going to select New File. And now what it expects us is to come up with the name of our file. Now we can come up with absolutely any name, but we must follow these three rules. First, whatever name you come up with cannot be started with a number. Secondly, you cannot start your name with a special character. And thirdly, you need to avoid the use of spaces when giving names. Rather, use camel cases. Now, I'm going to call my HTML file index. So I'm going to type INDEX. Now, I've called my file index, but for our Visual Studio Code and our browser to know that this index is supposed to be an HTML file, I need to add what we call an extension. An extension tells us more about a file. So the extension for this file would be .html because it's an HTML file, and we're going to work with a bit more extensions aside HTML as we progress. Now, having done that, I just hit enter, and now I have been able to create my first HTML file. But that is not all. Whenever you create any HTML file, there are some sets of code called baseplate code or boilerplate code that are compulsory because they provide some sets of instructions to the HTML. Now, there are quite a lot, and because they are much and they are very compulsory, Visual Studio Code offers us a way of having to write that code without having to do it from the top of our head. So all we need to do is try to type the word HTML, and because we are currently working on HTML version 5, so I select HTML5, the second option here. I select that, and here we go. These are the sets of boilerplate codes that we are expected to use for every HTML file. Now, in here goes the title of our HTML document, and in between the head of our HTML document, we can put every external material that we'll be needing for this file. Not to worry, we're going to do all of that as we progress. So for now, and also generate our boilerplate code. Next up, let us try to download all the images that we'll be needing for this project. Now, back at my Figma file, I can get all the images I'll need for this project, such as this button, the logo, as well as the background. If you take a close look at the background, you see it's not really white. It has an image. So I'll need those three images: the logo, the background, as well as the circular logo for this button. So first, let me try to download the logo. I'm going to open it up. I think this is the logo. And to download it, I'll just right click this. Okay. Okay. Things should be downloading now. Yeah, it's downloading now. Should be done any moment. So let's download the other ones as well. This should be the background. Let's see to be sure. I guess so. Yes, it is the background. So I also need to download that as well. And finally, I need the button. I need the button. Okay. Yeah. There we go. So I need the button, and I'm also going to download the button. There you go. I don't think the logo was downloaded, so I also need to download the logo again. Logo. Good. There we go. Now I've been able to successfully download all the images that I would need to create this web page. But remember at the beginning of the course, we said we needed a folder so that everything that we would need would be placed within that folder. So now because of that, all my downloads that can be found on my computer here, I'll need to copy them and go back and place them inside of that folder Flourish, the folder we created at the beginning of the course where we're currently working. So I'm going to copy all of these images that I have downloaded and go back and place them right inside the folder. And the reason is so that we can have everything that concerns this project in one particular location. Now I've copied it and I'm going to go back to the folder. Here's the folder. I'm going to go back. I'm going to try to place it here. But I think it's better to create another folder for the images inside. And to do that, I'll just select folder and I'm going to call it assets, just so that my folders and my files will be well organized. So I've called it assets, and inside this assets folder is where I shall be pasting all my images. Now I've done that. Let's go straight back to our Visual Studio Code. Now as you can see, all those images that I downloaded and placed within the folder are visible now, even with the Visual Studio Code. Good work. Now, let us take a close look at other websites. As you can see, we've got other examples of websites on our screen. So let's try to view ours as well. Now to view our website, we need to download an extension. It's called the Live Server extension. Now this Live Server extension helps us view our HTML websites in real time, so that if you make any changes, you do not need to reload your web page to see the result of the new changes that you have made. So I'm going to click on extensions, the extensions tab of the Visual Studio Code, and this is Live Server. You can also search for it by typing Live Server. And as you can see, this is the Live Server extension. If I click on it, I already have it installed, so I wouldn't need to install it again. But if you do not, you should install it, as it will be very helpful in viewing our web page. Now, once you have the Live Server installed, we can go right back and try to launch our web page using the live server extension. Now, if you try to do this, right click, you should see an option that says open with live server at the top of your options here. But if you do not, it's usually because you just installed the live server. So all you need to do is try to restart your Visual Studio Code and everything will be perfectly fine. And don't worry, you're not going to lose the progress of your work. Okay? Now I'm going to click on the open with live server. And as you can see, the server gets started. And here we go. Now, we can also view our web page like every other website on the internet. But there are a few differences. Firstly, every other website have titles, but the title of our website is currently document. I believe we should change that to travel agency. And to do that, we'll need to go to our HTML, and on line 6 we can see title. So instead of document, we replace that with a simple text, travel agency. There we go. Now if we go back, we can clearly see that the title of our website has changed from document. Now it is travel agency. One more thing. If you take a look at other websites, we have images right beside the title of the web page. I believe we should have an image as well. And that image beside the title of every web page is called a favicon. To attach a favicon to a HTML document is really easy. Now here's what we need to do. We'll go back to our HTML file, and in the head of our HTML, we need to create a tag. Now a tag is used to add items to our HTML. Without the use of a tag, you cannot add anything to HTML. So in order to add a favicon, I'll need to add a tag. But that tag would be inside the head. Now, tags that you put in between the head tag of your HTML are special tags. That's why they are placed within the head. And the favicon is an example of one of such special. So to have that, I'm going to try to type the word link. And I'm going to link favicon. I do not need the type, and I do not need it to be a shortcut. I just need an icon. So my href is short for hypertext reference. It means where do you want to source your icon from. Now remember, we have some images in our assets folder, and one of such is logo web. So we're going to try to make logo web our fav icon. To do that, we need to tell our computer to go into the assets folder. And to do that, I write /, which means look within the Flourish folder. Now, within the Flourish folder, we get to see assets, and we get to see assets, and we get to see index.html. So I'm going to select assets because I want logo.web.png from the assets folder. Now, having done this, let's take a look at our document again. As you can see, we now have a very small logo at the top of our beside our title. Now, at this point, we've been able to add the favicon and also been able to change the title of our web page. It's now time to go on designing the navigation bar, and after which we'll go on to design the hero section. And we're going to take up that designing the navigation bar from our next lesson.